Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Aurora, Colorado apartment complex is allegedly under siege by migrant gangs. Better get the cool slow, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue.
By the new video surfacing today showing a huge problem with what some are calling gang violence at an apartment complex in Aurora. The video shows men entering an apartment building with several weapons and then busting down a door.
And all of this taking place at the apartment, which had become a crime hotspot in that city. Fox 31's Vicente Arenas was at that complex today as people were moving out, fearing for their safety. Vicente is joining us live from that complex with a closer look at that eye-opening video, Vicente.
It is eye-opening, Erica. It is significant because this is the first time we've actually seen what has been happening inside that apartment complex at different times. This video, there's two different clips you're about to see. One of them, people carrying guns, and another where two people are just trying to break down a door. The video shows a group of men walking up a stairwell at the Edge Lowry apartment complex in Aurora. All of them appear to be carrying rifles and handguns, and the video shot earlier this month. One of the men can be seen talking on a cell phone. They all then gather around a door and go in. Another video clip shows men forcing a door open. But what or who they were searching for, not clear. The video was shot in the building where Cindy and Edward Romero lived until today. They loaded up their stuff and moved out.
It's been a nightmare and I can't wait to get out of here.
This is how Cindy used to lock her front door.
Every day when we come home, we have to do this. Every time we go outside to take out the garbage, every time we try to go to bed at night, we have to keep it like this so nobody can kick in the door.
The couple's car and many others here were riddled with bullets after a shootout at the complex earlier this month. The Romeros say the trouble started when a large number of migrants began moving in. They had not been able to move out for different reasons.
We couldn't get any. We tried reaching out to the resources, but they told us since it wasn't actually a condemned building, we would have to wait until that was the issue, but we didn't want to wait for that. So the only help I got was after talking to you.
We showed Councilmember Danielle Jurinsky the video. Today, she helped the couple move out and find a new place to live.
The city nonprofits have lined up to help the migrants that have come here, but nobody is helping the American citizens, the residents that are trapped in these apartment complexes.
The Romeros tell us others living here had been asking when they'd be moving out.
And this isn't just Americans, this is other Venezuelans that are living under this control, that are being extorted by the control of this gang.
While we were on the property today, even before we left, we were told other people were moving in and taking over the Romeros unit. We did speak to the mayor's office this afternoon. They sent us a statement saying that so far there are no code enforcement violations taking place at this complex. The mayor's office also responding in part for the Aurora Police Department. They're telling us that the police department here has seen that video that we just showed you. There is a lot more to this story. We'll be covering it in the days to come. Reporting live outside the municipal building in Aurora, Vicente Arenas, Fox 31.
Now, as seen in a video that went viral on mainstream media and social media, members of Venezuelan gangs are seen marching up the stairs of an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado, and while one migrant talks on a cell phone, others are carrying rifles and firearms as they knock on the door of an apartment. And in another video, many of these gang members are seen in the video breaking down the door of one of the apartments in this apartment complex. Now, according to people who live in this complex, they basically are living in fear of these migrants who have basically, as they say, taken over their apartment complex and are basically running that apartment complex similar to the way that the Cash Money brothers ran the apartment building in the 1991 film New Jack City. And as these migrants have basically taken over this apartment complex, many of the residents who are citizens and Venezuelan nationals who have come to the country illegally are living in fear, and they are living in fear all due to the backwards policies of the Biden administration, and those backwards policies further being reinforced by Aurora, Colorado's mayor. And as their mayor, Mike Kaufman, is basically looking to follow the same dysfunctional narrative that the cream of wheat man, New York Mayor Eric Adams, is following here in New York by trying to welcome those who enter the country illegally into his city. It has basically become the same type of chaos that we are seeing here in New York City. And even worse, what has happened is that we're seeing an escalation of the crime in Aurora, Colorado, like we're seeing right here in New York City, because since the Biden administration has not established a boundary as related to vetting those who enter the country illegally in their political game of chicken with members of the Red Party, such as Texas Governor Greg Abbott, what this has done is make it where people in blue cities like Aurora, Colorado are feeling in a state of terror as crime escalates, and many of these organized gangs that came from Venezuela start to establish a foothold in these cities. And as they establish a foothold in these cities, they are starting to establish a reign of terror similar to that of what they had in Venezuela, and similar to what foundational Black Americans had to deal with in the dark days of the 1980s and the 1990s, when the Crips and the Bloods were allowed to establish a foothold in areas like South Central Los Angeles. And in that environment, people basically were walking on eggshells, living in fear, never knowing what could possibly set off a shootout or an incident. And that is shown in a video where many of the people who did live there basically were terrified and could show you the bullet holes in their vehicles from a shootout that took place. And all of this chaos is, again, something that is a self-inflicted wound due to the political games being played by both political parties. And as both political parties play this political game of chicken, basically the lives of the American people are being put in peril. And they're being put in peril by politicians who are just so caught up in their ideals, they can't see the real people that they serve. And since they can't see the real people that they serve, they can't see that what they're doing is doing harm to the American people, who are, again, as I see it, in a pathetic state where they don't want to take their power and take their power by demanding that all of these politicians stop playing this stupid political game of chicken, where they keep trying to push these ideals that don't really benefit the real constituents of their area. Because this whole game of looking to bring migrants into the country and who entered the country illegally without vetting these individuals is putting the entire nation's safety at risk. And it really is opening a door for these people who entered the country illegally to escalate their behavior, and escalate their behavior because there is no one setting a boundary on how these individuals are supposed to behave when they enter the country, or set a boundary to let those who are known for participating in violent and criminal behavior to know that there is no place for them in our society. No, what's happening here is that because we have individuals on both sides of the aisle caught up in their ideals, we have those on the left who are caught up in their ideals of opening the door for illegals and giving them everything. And then we have those on the right who basically want to open the door for the illegals so that they can get cheap labor. However, both sides are basically putting the entire integrity of the country's stability at risk, because if you don't have a proper boundary to set for individuals as related to standards for being able to immigrate into a country, what you get is an invasion of individuals who see the weakness of leadership. And once they see the weakness of leadership, they use that as an opportunity to take power. And that's exactly what's happening in many of these blue cities because of the weakness of leadership of mayors like Aurora's Mike Kaufman. What's happening is that you're getting these individuals seeing this as an opportunity to take power because they see no one there to set a boundary and set authority and set order and let people know where the line is. And since they don't see anybody setting a boundary where the line is, what they're doing is making their own inroads, and they do this by taking territory. And that's what they're doing with this apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. These gangs see that many of the politicians there are more caught up in trying to get money for these migrants instead of looking out for the health and safety of their constituents who voted for them, and instead of looking to serve their constituents who basically voted for them to have this job to represent them, what they're doing is looking to, again, represent whatever will get them the most money. And that's basically leading to this whole thing where you're getting these people thinking that they can come in and take over because they are being enabled by the political leadership, which has basically abdicated its whole position because they are all about looking to get as much money from each of these migrants rather than looking to serve the citizens of that area. And that's why you've got this chaos going on in Aurora, Colorado, as reports allege. You have this chaos going on because there's no real leadership going on in Aurora, Colorado. No, you don't have any leadership at all, and you don't have any leadership setting boundaries. And because you don't have leadership setting boundaries at the border on the federal level, or in the governor's office at the state level, or even at the city level, this is why you have the gangs basically taking property, because there's nobody leading this city. And as they refuse to lead this city, this is why you're starting to see this chaos in the streets. And you're seeing this chaos in the streets because there's nobody serving the people. And what's even sadder about this whole situation is the people are not holding these politicians accountable for this egregious breach of law. I mean, nobody here is holding these people accountable, and that's the big saddest part, because according to our United States Constitution, it states the first three words are "we the people," and we the people are the ones who are supposed to elect these politicians to represent our interests. But it seems like these individuals aren't interested in following our interests as related to preserving our health, safety, or basically quality of life. No, what they have gone in is on some dysfunctional ideal of, oh, we need to let the migrants in and it's supposed to be according to the law. No, that was never a part of our Constitution. People who are not citizens don't have a right to violate our boundaries of our border. They don't have a right to violate our rights as related to our country and our rule of law. No, those who come to the country illegally and come into our country, if they don't want to follow the rules of our country, then we need to take action to remove these individuals from our country, because that's how you maintain rule of law, and that's how you keep anarchy and chaos from coming into the streets of areas like this Aurora, Colorado, where residents basically are looking to move out of these apartment complexes because they fear for their safety. And as they fear for their safety, what's going to happen to those areas is what happened in the late 1980s and 1990s during the crack epidemic, when gangs in places like South Central and places like here in New York City basically turned these neighborhoods into hellholes and turned it filled with urban blight and made squalid conditions that nobody could live in because nobody felt safe. And since nobody felt safe, the entire neighborhood fell completely apart, and fell completely apart because the leadership that people elected stopped serving the people, and stopped serving the people because they were so caught up in their graft and corruption and thinking about making money at the expense of those who supported criminal enterprise, that they weren't looking to serve the people who voted for them. And many of the people who voted for them, again, basically, they wound up throwing up their hands, seeing that these politicians didn't serve them, and they wound up leaving those areas. And that's what's happening in Aurora, Colorado right now, and that's going to lead to a major implosion of the economy. And again, all of this due to the weak leadership that has been in charge at the national level, at the state level, and at the local level. And sadly, many of we the people here in the pathetic states of America don't have the backbone or the stones to stand up for their own country, and stand up first by standing up and demanding that these politicians be held accountable for their egregious lack of stewardship, and hold these people accountable for their lack of stewardship by either recalling these individuals or vote or picking new candidates. Because again, this is your ability as the powers given to you by our forefathers. I mean, Thomas Jefferson said, if a government isn't working for you, you have a right to put that government off and put on a new government. But sadly, many people here in the pathetic states of America are so caught up in their polarized feelings, they can't see that the solutions are staring them in the face as related to this migrant crisis. Because if these politicians who brought these people here don't want to serve the constituents by dealing with these individuals who entered the country illegally, by holding them accountable, then it's time for us to get some politicians who we can hold accountable and get some policy put in place to remove these individuals. Because again, you cannot have a safe society if you have people coming into your society looking to usurp the authority and the power of the government and the people. And that's something that flies over the heads of many American citizens who sit there in frustration and refuse to take their power. They refuse to take their power, and they sit there and they allow people to abuse them in a codependent relationship, saying, oh, we really can't do nothing, as people are coming to take property and take territory and terrorize people to have their turf in a country they entered into illegally, a country they entered into illegally because there was no boundary set by the federal government, no boundary set by the state government of Colorado, no boundary set by the city of Aurora. And again, all these politicians should be shown the door for their just pathetic response, because the whole situation with immigration, whether it be blue or red, again, if this person entered illegally and they basically are not somebody who has the background of somebody with no record, this is a person we show the door. And again, we need a standard and not people grandstanding, whether it be Donald Trump or the red party or the blue party. No, something needs to be done, because cheap labor comes at a cost. If nobody's safe, you can't have businesses run if they aren't safe. Again, nobody's critically thinking about this situation, and since nobody's critically thinking about this situation, you're getting all this chaos. But you're getting this chaos because the pathetic states of America, pathetic people, don't want to take their power. No, they want to sit here and make excuses, whether it be the left or the right politicians or the American people. And when it comes to the American people, when I look at this situation, many of us are getting what we deserve, because we refuse to stand up and demand better and hold people accountable. I mean, I look at America today and it's worse than the days before the 1994 revolution, where people finally got fed up with all of the crime and all of the violence that happened from the 1970s all the way up until 1994. And it took like 30 plus years for people to figure out, hey, these guys ain't working for us, things ain't getting better, and maybe it's time to go do something else. But this is the sad state of the pathetic states of America and the pathetic people who live in America, who take their lives for granted. They basically sit there and allow everything to go to complete shit because they don't want to go out here and upset people and say that they have a standard and they demand better. And again, this is basically what's happening in Aurora, is a sad state of what America is. Pathetic people who are, as I see it, getting what they deserve because they refuse to stand up and demand that these people who they elected go out here and do jobs for them. Pathetic people who refuse to say, if this guy ain't doing the job, if this guy ain't getting stuff done, then we need to get this fool out of this office. I mean, there comes a point where you, the American person, have to say enough is enough, and it's not about taking any political sides. No, it's not about taking any political sides. It's about you as a citizen demanding better as related to your quality of life and demanding that a standard be established. This is what people aren't understanding. Again, you're the one who sets the boundaries. You're the one who sets the standards for law. You're the one who is establishing this. And again, if you allow people to push past your boundaries, they'll basically take over your place where you are. And this is something that happens to people, again, when they have no sense of power or agency at all. And that's the sad state of affairs of America, because, again, if they'll take one apartment complex, they'll start taking entire neighborhoods and entire blocks. That's what the gangs did in South Central in the 80s and the early 90s, before they wound up getting pushed out by, again, many of these same people who are in these communities. And again, all because people, again, at the top don't want to lead. And again, many of the people themselves don't want to take agency in charge of their lives. And this whole situation going on at this apartment complex is a microcosm of what's going on in this country. And it's going on because many people here in America take their lives for granted, don't really appreciate what they have. And since we didn't invest in our men, they can't protect you and protect and establish a standard. So I look at this sad state of affairs, and again, America basically, again, you sit there and you sit there on your hands. You created this situation and you're thinking that, oh, a blue president will change things, but that's a definition of insanity. It's a definition of insanity to believe that you're going to change things overnight. Again, once you let somebody get past a boundary and let them continue to walk all over you, it's harder to push back on that person once they've been able to, again, do things like take over an entire apartment complex. It's harder to push back on people once they've pushed into your territory. And the way you deal with these individuals is from minute one, by setting that boundary for yourself. But when I look at America, again, I don't see people looking to set that boundary, and that's why you've got gangs taking over apartment complexes and crime running rampant like it is here in the pathetic states of America. Now, if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct Imprint, you can find them on Amazon.com. And if you want to see me make other videos, because I'm not making political videos anymore, I just wanted to talk about this, and you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s in this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Get your copy of John Haynes 1987 in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Hayes in paperback and e-readers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.